I'm just like thinking about our whole conversation before we even started the recording today about, yes, I did. No, you didn't.
The wheels were already off.
The wheels are already off and we hadn't started, which is kind of pretty funny given that this is the Structure and Flow podcast. We were definitely not in our structure. This is episode 108, where we're talking about the dreaded S word, systems. Yep, my dear creatives, today we are talking about systems.
And we had a system to prepare for this
we
podcast.
Did, and we had a system breakdown.
Apparently it broke down.
So I guess it doesn't really matter what the breakdown was, but it was mostly about, what are we going to call this episode about systems, right? Because I started to do the podcast planning template, thought I had shared it with Brad. Clearly I hadn't, because he's the systems guy. I sent it over to him and said, hey, dude, I think you should prep the content for this particular episode of the podcast, because he loves systems.
I do.
Geeks out on systems.
Systems are the best ever.
And I'll never forget one of my first mentors and coaches, an amazing woman named Kendall Summerhawk. She always used to talk about how systems will liberate you. And I used to resist. And then I realized she's right, that the more systems we have in place, the fewer decisions we have to make, the easier it is to grow and scale your business. The more simple it is to create automation in a lot of different places. So that's kind of where we're going in this episode, is how systems can improve productivity, but also create more time and spaciousness in your calendar to do the creative work that you love.
Oh, for sure.
And you found an awesome quote. You want to share the quote?
Mm-hmm. This is from Brian Logue.
I don't know who that is.
Me neither.
But it's a great quote.
Leaders, if you're too busy to build good systems, then you'll always be too busy. And that's the truth. If you're just... and that's what we're going to talk about generally. I guess let's just get into it. You know, if you're repeating the same task over and over and over, and you don't have a way to offload that, optimize it, create a system around it that others could help you with, or that helps you, you're wasting your time, and you're spending less time in your zone of genius or your zone of excellence, which is where we want you. And you're doing way too many decisions, and you don't have enough brain power to put you into the flow state that you want to be in.
Yeah, it's so true. And so Brad's reference to the zone of genius is a reference to one of our favorite business books, The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. We've mentioned it many times on this show. And it's particularly pertinent to the conversation of systems and structure and flow. So in his book, he talks about how there's 4 different zones. And it's really important as an entrepreneur to get really clear about which of your tasks fall into the zones. It's the zone of incompetence, the zone of competence, the zone of excellence, and the zone of genius. And we have our clients do this at least once a year, where they literally have to sit down and make a massive to-do list of all of the tasks, items, all the different things they do in their business on a consistent daily, weekly, monthly, and annual basis, and then mark them according to which zone they're in. And there's usually a lot of dismay. In year 2, there's usually some excitement because they're moving more into competence and into excellence. And Gay Hendricks talks about how we won't truly feel fulfilled in our life and in our work until we're spending most of our time in our zone of genius.
Right, right. So I kind of want you to walk away from today with some actionable stuff. And I think the easiest way to do that is to just look at low-hanging fruit. What are the easiest things in your life right now, in your business especially, but you know, your life counts as well when it comes to systems, in terms of things where you're wasting time doing the same thing over and over and over. Where is that low-hanging fruit that you could either offload to a service, offload to an automation system, offload to someone else that you pay for? Well, what are those things? So I had some examples that I worked through where down here where just to trigger your mind about what might be something that you could work on. Setting up travel reservations. Do you use the same airline, hotel, rental car chain every time for simplicity and to get more points? Or are you always looking for the cheapest one, but maybe spending a lot more time agonizing over the decision about travel or about how to organize that travel? Or could you have a travel agent do that for you and completely eject it from your life and just have it handed to you on a silver platter for a fee, of course? How you prepare for giving a talk. So let's say that you have your signature talk uh, and you give that once a month. Do you always prepare the same way? Do you always have the same slides? Are you constantly tweaking it? Are you someone like Minette who has a slightly different talk every time with a slightly different offer and never gets the opportunity to optimize one great talk?
That's not true.
How do you handle your billing? Are you
That used to be true.
do you have a billing automation system? Do you do the same thing every time, or do you hand do billing all the time? Or for those of us that work at home, I'm sure there's a lot of people that are listening that are like that. How do you go to work in the morning? What does that mean for you? Do you get up and shower and work out and put on work clothes, or do you sort of do the different thing every morning? Not sure when you're going to have breakfast. Not sure whether you're going to watch a little morning TV.
How is that different than a routine? How does that fall into the category of a system?
Well, whether you write it down or not, the morning thing, yeah, that's a routine, but it helps a ton to have a routine that's ritualized, that you don't have to make decisions about. So rather than getting to 9 a.m. and you're still making decisions about what shirt to wear, all of that is flowed more simply. Whereas things like the travel reservations example or the signature talk example, those are things where you could actually write down the steps that you want to take each time and just repeat that.
So from a more business-focused, practical perspective, some other examples of where we have implemented systems are the processes for posting a blog, for all the steps of producing a podcast and getting it listed. Brad has written step-by-step processes with screenshots of where things go and how to do it, so that whether it's us doing it, we can do it faster, and it makes it really easy to pass it off to our VA. It minimizes the number of mistakes that are made and minimizes distractions as well, and maximizes our productivity and efficiency. So when Brad's doing financials, he has a checklist of the things that he does on the 10th and the 25th every month, and he just goes through his little process. And I wanted to also add about this piece about not making decisions. One of the funny stories is about Steve Jobs, who I think had one color of shirt, right?
Yeah.
Like he said,
same clothes every day.
Same clothes. Well, I think he had multiple shirts, but they all were exactly the same shirt.
Yeah, not the same physical clothes every day.
But he never had to make a decision about what to wear. Like that was not something that was important to him. For those ladies out there listening, you might not even be able to imagine what that looks like. But I've been thinking about it for the podcast and for my Facebook Lives, because it's a pain in the butt to go up and stare at my closet. And it maximizes the amount of time it takes to get ready to do the video recording. And really, who cares if I show up in the same shirt or 3 shirts? Like I have a few colors that are perfect for doing video. They're colors that I like. They look good on screen, right? All of these different things. I've already made those decisions. They can go in a separate part of my closet. They always, at least one of them is clean at a time.
Right.
I don't have to think twice about it. So this is about getting more done in less time by having simple systems in place.
Yeah, that's a fantastic example. You think about the difference between going up to your closet. So you're gonna either go give a talk, or you're gonna get on Facebook Live, or you're gonna do YouTube recording, whatever it is, and you go up to your closet. Now there's you, number one, who has a uniform, and there's three versions of it.
Yeah.
2 of them happen to be clean, and that includes your shirt, your lipstick, your jewelry, those types of things. You walk up there, you put them on, you walk down, and then you do a great job of creating whatever it is you're going to create.
Yeah.
In terms of talking. And then there's you too, which goes up there and spends 15 minutes to half an hour trying to put together a different uniform that's not really uniform, and you're all frustrated by that. And by the time you get back downstairs to give the talk,
and this is true for guys or girls,
well, yeah,
right?
yeah.
I mean, I watch him sometimes do the same thing.
Oh,
I don't have
yes.
anything to wear. All my t-shirts are worn out,
Yeah,
you
exactly.
know? So it's making sure that you're prepared for these important things that are happening. And then I would add to that the part about the space to do it. Like right now, we're doing this in Brad's office. We've been saying for months, we're going to set up a studio.
Right.
And we haven't done that. What I did do was carve out a corner of my office for doing my Facebook Live with the tripod is set up, the light is set up, it doesn't move. Well, the housekeeper's coming today. She has a tendency to move things and then I have to reset it. So, you know, so a clear, it's like, it's one of those annoying things. It's like, okay, just let her know. Like we put tape on the floor, we had put tape under the tripod, and she's an amazing housekeeper and she cleaned it all up, right? So just making sure that you let people know not to move things when they're set up and in place, right? So now it literally takes me 5 minutes to get set up to do a Facebook Live, where before I was futzing around for 30 to 45 minutes and frustrated because I was trying to clear space and get the backdrop set and, you know, do all these different things. So what a consistent waste of time. So now I have a system and I have a place for doing everything seamlessly, right?
Yeah, and it's not just a consistent waste of time, it's a consistent waste of mental energy, and that perhaps is more important.
Will you go back up here and talk about automation? Because automation is such a valuable part of systems. People get really freaked out thinking that they can't afford to hire lots of people. The truth is that much of what we're talking about can be done simply through automation. We're big fans of hiring support in your business, and it's more affordable than you think. We can talk about that another day, but today let's focus on automation and how automation is just another form of a system.
Yeah, and we use these to a great extent. You know, all of our campaigns and so on and so forth, emails are automated through Ontraport or Meet Edgar for our social stuff, and certainly those cost money, and there's development involved in them. But the automation in them is tremendous. But there's a lot of things that you could automate that maybe you haven't thought of with free tools that are out there. I probably paid $15 for a plugin for WordPress to do site backups. I think there's free ones. I got it scheduled. It goes off every Sunday night. I got 2 different sites that it backs up. It sends me an email. I never have to worry about backups, and I could change that schedule. So that's
so for those creatives who are listening, can you just say, what do you mean by backing it up and why that's so important?
Sure. Well, anything with software can go wrong, and you know,
often does,
and you can lose data. You could lose your blog posts, or you could lose your site, or whatever it is. And if you have a backup, then you can pay someone to restore it for you, and with some sanity, and just, you know, maybe you just lost a week instead of the whole thing. We use a transcription service called rev.com. We use it for this podcast, but it's tremendously effective if you have, once again, a signature talk, perhaps a Facebook Live that you want to repurpose. You want to get that information on paper or digitally on paper out of the video. You just send it to them. It's $1 a minute, and lo and behold, you've got that transcription, and you could turn that into an ebook or something like that. Yep. Bookkeeping for us is a huge one now. Of course, that costs money, but it's in my zone of incompetence and Minette's zone of incompetence. So clearly, we just pay people to help with that.
So how is that automation? So can you talk about how QuickBooks is the part that you're using to automate that? So because a bookkeeper is not automation.
Yeah, so we use QuickBooks Online. There are other probably cheaper tools, things like FreshBooks, but most of the account transactions are just automatically sucked from PayPal or from our credit card processing or from our bank accounts, and so just magically everything shows up in QuickBooks, and then the bookkeeper just has to do the sorting and aligning the transactions to make sure they're...
Mint.com is another great example of automating personal finances, right?
Yeah, it's a way to just have a great view of things without having to go through all of your statements individually. And so finally, there's a tool online called Zapier, Zapier.com, Zapier. and they're kind of amazing. They make online tools talk to each other. And it's relatively easy, or you could have someone do it for you to just do all sorts of automation. So they give the example of it pulling sales invoices out of a tool called Zero and giving you a weekly digest of sales invoices. Similarly, you can set it up to automatically post from WordPress into Facebook. There's things where you could have it parse through your emails, finding specific ones, and send them to a Google spreadsheet. Just the list goes on. You would be amazed by the things that you can automate with this, so that you're not having to manually do them. And that's really what we're interested in, is finding those things that, once again, are low-hanging fruit that you can automate, you can optimize, and just lead to less decisions and less monkey work.
So my favorite thing that Brad has done with Zapier, there's a lot of good ones, but Zapier also is how we connect Entreport, our CRM and email tool, to Calendly, right? So that my calendar is super neat and organized, and it's really easy for people to schedule time to talk to me. But my favorite thing that Brad has done with it is we use Slack. It's another great communication tool that we love. And every time we make an online sale, we get a little ka-ching in our Slack inbox. And it's such a fun reminder, mindset and technology combined, to remind us that money is flowing in on a regular basis. So there's ways that you can use some of this automation and reminders for different things. As we've been talking about, we've been implementing some new personal renewal rituals into our schedule. We use the alarm on our phone as another form of automation to remind us of different activities. So you have access to the tools. Many of them are free or very low cost that you can be implementing in your business to keep you on track and on task. And systems are the number one way that you'll be able to grow and scale your business. When you are ready to start hiring a virtual assistant, if you already have the system in place, it makes the onboarding process of new hires so simple that you're not scrambling trying to train them and figure out what it is that you want them to do, or having to repeat how to do something over and over again if you already have the system in place.
Yeah, and for folks that really dread it, and I gave the example of the travel agent, and what you'll find is when you talk with the travel agent, they will set up a system for you from day one. They will ask you, do you want aisle seat? Do you want window seat? Do you want middle seat? I don't know anybody that wants a middle seat. They want to know, they'll want to know your favorite airline, airport. Do you want to go out in the morning? What kind of car do you want? All of those things. They're building a system for you. Yeah. So that when you come to them and say, hey, I need to get to Denver, they don't have to worry about all those little things and asking you those questions again. So it's not really any different than that. And there's just opportunity. Yeah, there's opportunities for this just abound. Look for something simple. Don't get overwhelmed by, I've got to automate everything and all these online tools. Just look at the things in your life and your business that you're repeating that clearly aren't in your zone of excellence or genius. And even if you can't figure it out for yourself, ask somebody. They can help you. Just, what can I do to make this work better?
Yeah, I love that. And I'm thinking back to the example of something that many of us are doing consistently in our business, which is writing a blog post. And you can implement a system, because normally not only do you write the blog post and you share the blog post on social media and you find an image and maybe you're going into Canva and creating a graphic. If you have a simple checklist of all of the steps, you don't have to do them all at once, but you won't forget any part of the process to make sure that you're driving the traffic that you want, creating consistently awesome content, and sharing it in all the right places. If you have a simple, just a 5-point checklist in place that you read and check off every single time you write a blog post, would be another really practical example of a simple system that once it's in place, then it just like frees your mind up, right? Of some of that space of, oh my God, I got to do this and I got to do that. I want to talk for a minute. I want to bring back in our 4 different productivity styles. And if you haven't taken the quiz yet, you can do that at pathtoprofitacademy.com/UPS quiz. And we want to look briefly at how each of the 4 productivity styles, excuse me, react or approach systems differently? You want to start while I grab a sip of water?
Apparently she reacts poorly. Yeah. So the unique productivity styles, once again, are commander, contemplator, conductor, and creator. And they each have their own world that they live in. And they're all creatives. Don't mistake the creator as
the only creative type.
The only creative type. Mm-hmm. So a commander prefers to create and then delegate systems to others.
Actually, that's not me, because I don't like to create them. I like to work inside them once they're created.
Interesting. Well, maybe you're getting better.
Yeah, I am getting better.
The contemplator can't function without clear systems and processes. That's clearly me.
And he loves to create systems and share them with others.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
From my perspective, every creative business owner needs a contemplator on their team. They bring so much value. So as you start to think about hiring and looking for partners and collaborators, you want to find people with complementary talent. So the productivity style assessment can really help you know who you need on your team.
Right. And that goes hand in hand with the rocket fuel definition of integrator versus
visionary.
Yep. And you want your integrator to be someone who is happy with systems.
Yep.
The third one is the conductor. The conductor wants others to create systems for them, but enjoys working within the systems once they're created, which I think sounds a little bit more like Nanette.
It does. And the thing is that conductors are super focused on people and relationships, and they're conducting, right? They're moving people around. They're really focused on harmony and peace and balance. And so they don't have time, or they don't think about systems that could actually improve their ability to increase connection with others. So just like a conductor of an orchestra has a score, the score serves as a system, right? As a structure in which there's all this amazing flow and creativity happening. So I would invite you, if the conductor is you, to think about where could you implement systems that actually allow you to support people even more than you already love doing.
Right. And so finally is the creator that we mentioned before, and they resist systems. We hear you out there, creators. You don't want them, but you really need them. They believe too much structure will inhibit creativity. And that's kind of what this show is about, is hopefully turning the corner on that and showing you that truly it can support your creativity just more so than not having it.
And there is a principle out there called the principle of creative constraints, which is all about how having structure and limits and constraints increases creative output and creative thinking and creative imagination. So I encourage you to go check out the concept of creative constraints. If you don't believe me that creators will benefit from systems. And, I'm a good example of that. I was thinking back to the early days of when I started my publishing company. It was very deadline driven. I knew exactly when I had to get my magazine to press every single month. But around that were all these different things that I had to do. And I had systems, but they were all in my head. And the first time I hired an office manager, she was so brilliant at helping me get all those systems out of my head and onto paper. So if you know that you have routines and systems and structure in place, but you haven't made the move to really clarify and document them, now is the time to do that. So making sure that you're documenting your systems is an important next step. You may already have them in place. You may have great routine. You may have structure that you're not even identifying as structure or system, but go ahead and get it documented. We cannot articulate enough. Like, I can describe a system to Brad, and he's brilliant at actually documenting it in a way that other people will get it too.
Cool stuff. I think that wraps it up for systems. Hopefully that helps you.
Remember,
hopefully you got some takeaways.
Systems will liberate you. We promise.
That's right. And in the next episode 109, we're going to talk about another pillar of productivity. We are closing in on all 9 of them.
Yep.
This will be your tasks, how you prioritize them, how you list them, how you get them done.
This is going to be a fun one to talk about tasks. It's one of the places I see people get really overwhelmed is with these massive long list of tasks. We're going to give you some ideas of apps to use to manage your tasks, as well as how to prioritize tasks and how to let go of the ones that have been lingering on your list for a really long time and that you're probably never going to get to anyway.
Good stuff.
All right. We'll see you next week.